What's good? Muria Zimbabwe. Welcome to The Connection, our Studio 7's very own youth program that targets tackling anything and everything youth-related. Muria Zimbabwe ndinomkamchira mchongwa chedu chevechidiki. Uhlelo The Connection muyineni Michael Hove. Welcome, Muria Zimbabwe, to The Connection, Studio 7's very own youth program that targets tackling anything and everything youth-related. Unfortunately, Muria Zimbabwe were unable to give you this program live, as per usual, due to COVID-19. We're coming to you from my apartment in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, the 15th of September, 2020. Muria Zimbabwe, I'm your host, Michael Hove. Silusizi ngempela zulukandaba namhla kuhlelo ngeke senelise ulethulela uhlelo njengensukwini sisebenze ngenxa yalo mkhuhlane we-COVID-19. We're all working sisezindlini zethu. Nonetheless, mthwakazi omuhle, Zimbabwe omuhle, silapha. We are here pano pachirongwa chedu chevechidiki, here on The Connection with your boy Mike Hove. Tonight on The Connection, we continue the discussion on COVID-19, coronavirus. Joining us is going to be Dr. Tinotendas Memeza as we tackle the rise in COVID-19 cases. But we don't just look to end the conversation there. We also look to touch on another discussion, Muria Zimbabwe, a development that happened in the nation last week. Last week, we witnessed the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, ZACC, as many know it, launched an online whistleblower platform which will allow Zimbabweans to report corruption or crime anonymously on their pages. You'll be able to use your cell phone. Is this going to help in the fight against corruption? We look to hear more from the nation's youth. But first up, coronavirus, COVID-19. According to Johns Hopkins University, over 29,306,000 people have contracted coronavirus worldwide. Approximately 930,000 people have died due to COVID-19. And some positivity, 19,880,000 have recovered. So the numbers again, worldwide figures, 29,306,000 have contracted COVID-19 worldwide. Approximately 930,000 people worldwide have died due to COVID-19, and positivity, 19,880,000 people worldwide have recovered. These figures are changing by the minute, so by the time we go on air, once again, this is a pre-recorded program, by the time we go on air, these figures most likely would have changed. According to the most recent tweet issued by the Ministry of Health, in Zimbabwe, we currently have over 7,531 cases. I apologize. 224 are dead, and approximately 5,700 people have recovered. So for those watching on our stream, as usual, you can see the figures on the screen. The latest information released by the Ministry of Health, unfortunately, does not show the cumulative amount of tests that have been conducted to date. However, it highlights that 349 PCR tests were conducted yesterday, and of those 349, 5 cases came back positive. 12 were reported recovered, and thank Mudimu, thank God, 0 died. So those are the figures. One more time in Zimbabwe, once again, the figures stand as 7,531 COVID cases, 224 dead, and approximately 5,700 recovered. So as you see from the data shown, the gap between people that have contracted coronavirus and people recovering from COVID-19 is closing. We've reported about this for last couple of weeks, and it seems as though it's progressing. Without further ado, Muria Zimbabwe, let us head over to our conversation that we have with Dr. Tinotendas Memeza, whereby he highlights what is causing this rise in COVID cases, and we touch on other issues that are COVID-related in Zimbabwe. Let us head over to Dr. Tinotendas Memeza.
I think, the numbers are increasing as expected. The deaths, because the numbers are increases, you also expect an increase in the number of deaths. Mm-hmm. But also, on a positive note, the number of recoveries are also good. Mm-hmm. So I think what we're just noticing is just the trend of the virus, which is rising, but in a sense, it's being contained as a result of more people recovering. Mm-hmm. Also, another trend that has been noticed throughout the world, that most people actually recover from them.
Right. Now, I've always been curious because there's been so many theories around COVID-19, amongst them being the change of seasons. That when in some places when it's summer, apparently the numbers don't go up or they decrease, and vice versa. When it's winter, apparently that's when they go up. In Zimbabwe, do you think that this trend is applicable?
In theory, it might be. In the sense that we can notice that in Zimbabwe this year we had a short winter.
Right.
But that wasn't as long as expected. And one thing about the coronavirus, it contains a fatty layer that has a protein on the center, a protein RNA DNA. So what happens is UV light is said to destroy the fatty coat, which is sort of like the protective layer of the virus. So more exposure to UV light than the destruction of the virus. So in theory, it actually does apply to say when it's summer, the virus doesn't spread as much as it does in winter.
So in theory, technically, as a country, we've been at the mercy of the summer.
Exactly. It's actually Africa in a sense. It's the whole of Africa because the weather patterns in Africa are mostly sunny.
Right. So now, if we take a look at what's happening in other parts of the world, as other parts of the world now enter into winter, some places are starting to get hit by a second wave of coronavirus. And that's led to them now going into another lockdown, just as they thought things are getting better. Zimbabwe, it's flipped. We're slowly starting to ease things out. People are slowly, the conditions of the lockdown are also being loosened. People can travel and so forth. Before we touch on this traveling aspect, as a country, do you think we should always keep a plan to ensure if anything happens? Do you think we need a second wave plan?
Definitely, we do. Because the thing is, we don't know exactly. We're still studying the virus, so we don't know its patterns, and sometimes the virus tends to mutate. So the first wave, it might come and just acclimatizes with the environment and so forth. Then it actually mutates and then starts to affect people as it develops a protective mechanism against whatever weather patterns and so forth. So we should always be prepared for a second wave, whether it is the virus just multiplying or the virus itself mutating. So I think there should always be plans to be prepared for a second wave, either way.
I am curious though, what is the difference between influenza and COVID-19? I'm thinking of the explanations, and they seem to be part of the same family, but how is that one is more lethal than the other?
It's actually they're similar but not the same. So if you see how influenza, do you know about the flu pandemic that happened long back?
Right.
It was really lethal, and about 50 million people died during that time of the flu pandemic. So, but over time, you develop protective mechanisms against it. Your body changes structurally and to fight against it. You develop immunity against it, such that it becomes no longer lethal. It was. So it's the same sort of pattern that coronavirus is now just starting out. So it's lethal, but over time, you will see that we'll develop immunity against it and resistance against it, such that it will be like what we do to flu. Corona will be the same thing. So it's more to say that our bodies restructure and also try to get immunity over time. But as it stands now, since it's a new virus, that's why it's bombarding us as it is.
So now, in such a circumstance, is it necessary to go with the whole preventative measures that we're doing instead of just exposing ourselves up until we retain some kind of tolerance?
Well, it's good to go with because we are looking at the acute stage. People will die,
Right.
so we don't want people to die. So it's good to actually get preventative measures, and then if a vaccine is found or is discovered, that will help boost immunity. Or sometimes, so how vaccines work, that they take a dead coronavirus or a live attenuated, so something that is not as deadly. It's injected into your body, then you develop immunity naturally again. So it helps to speed up that sort of process that we might develop over time. So it's actually good to continue doing these preventative measures. Although some theories are saying some people have already developed herd immunity, to say you have naturally developed immunity against it just through the exposure.
Right.
But we don't want to risk people dying that might not develop that immunity.
Okay. Tisatisa pedza hurukuredu, Doc, and we touch on the lockdown restrictions being loosened and also the recent announcements from the Ministry of Sports, which will make a lot of people happy. Ngatibobata inyaya nerurimi rwamai. Tiudzewo maonero enyu pamusoro pezvekukwira kwenhamba dzevanhu vari kubatwa nechirwere checoronavirus munyika.
Kukwira kwemanhamba uku it is expected kuti manhamba anofanira kunge achikwira nenyaya yekuti tinenge taakutestawo maningi. Uyezve vanhu vakawanda vakuti fambei nyika yavhurika, saka manambers anoexpectwa kuti arise. But on a positive note, tiri kuona kuti izvo, although manambers ari kurise, vanhuwo vari kurecover vakati one day, ende vanhu vari kufa, although vari kuwedzera asi havasi kuwedzera maningi sezvainge zvakaprojectwa nevana mazvikokota. Saka tinoti zviri kuratidza kuti vanhu vakawanda vari kuwanawo utachiona hwecoronavirus, asi vakati wandei vari kurecover, which is a good thing.
Tochibata kazvimwewo zviri kuitika kune dzimwe nyika pasi rose, tiri kuonawo kuti dzimwe nyika aiwa dzakutopinda bhizi zvekare vakudzokera kuye kulockdown kwavanga vambotiza, nemhaka yekuti vakurohwa zvekare necoronavirus. Vanzi vakarohwa newave 1 yekutanga, vaizawo malockdown restrictions sezvatiri kuita kuZimbabwe, vachidaro coronavirus vayavarohwa zvekare. Nemaonero enyu mungati senyika yeZimbabwe tofanira kutarisira kusangana nedambudziko rakafanana here?
I think seZimbabwe tinofanira kungogara takagadzirira kuti tinokwanisa kuwana second wave, nenyaya yekuti tavhura nyika, vanhu vaakufamba, saka izvozvo zvinokwanisa kuwedzera coronavirus. Uyezve iro virus pachezvayo inokwanisa kuchinja izviprotecte against zuva ratiri kuti rakanyanya muAfrica, saka inoadapta. Izvozvo zvinokwanisira kuti rizokwanisa kurarama kwenguva yakati rebei. Saka tinofanira kungoramba takangogadzirira sevanhu vemuZimbabwe kuti tiprepare if anything is to go the matter, better second wave.
All right, Doc, now let's wrap up our conversation here. Lockdown restrictions, you were touching on the fact that they've been loosened. Recently, we heard Cabinet and the President himself announce that people can now travel within the country. Now, as people travel, of course, the number is still increasing, the amount of deaths is still increasing. What advice would you have for them to ensure that they don't contribute towards the spreading of COVID in the country?
Okay. I would say if we can try to minimize travel, by all means, that would be good. Up until we have really gotten a hold of this pandemic. But as now the nation is open to travel and so forth, we should always practice the things that we've been talking about each and every other week, to say let's practice our social distancing, our strict hygiene, washing of hands, and so forth, so as to minimize the spread of this pandemic. So we should always avoid unnecessary travel, by all means, just to sort of manage the situation that we have, because as Zimbabwe, we don't have enough resources or capacity to contain a pandemic. It is to actually become full-blown in Zimbabwe. So we should practice the principles that we have been discussing throughout this.
Dr. Tinothenda Simemeza, ngibonga udokotela Tinothenda Simemeza ngokungena kuhlelo lwethu labasakhulayo. Thank you so much to Dr. Tinothenda Simemeza for taking time out to join us here on The Connection as usual. You heard him there touching on COVID-19. The increase in COVID-19 cases, as he mentioned, is to be expected. So just a recap as we speak, the amount of figures stand as this. Over 7,531 COVID cases in Zimbabwe, 224 dead, and approximately 5,700 people have recovered from COVID-19. But now COVID-19 in Zimbabwe has become a very strenuous fight in terms of resources. Some places currently are still gathering resources and trying to attain donations in terms of food, PPE, computers, and different things that will all help towards the fight against coronavirus in Zimbabwe. Let's head over to Bulawayo, where there's an organization called I Am for Bulawayo Fighting COVID-19 that has been working endlessly, tirelessly for the past 6 months in the fight against coronavirus, helping hospitals in Bulawayo by seeking donations and by providing donations to these different institutions. Last week, they provided another donation to one of the hospitals. So let's head over to a clip that we received courtesy of them, whereby they're talking about their most recent donations.
And I am very pleased that today we are here to hand over to the National Reference Lab a refrigerator that was facilitated through Bulawayo My Home, a diasporan-based group in the UK that gave us money, and based on the needs assessment we had made and our engagement with the team here at the lab, we were able to identify this as a priority need. But also other funds that have come to us, we have been able to install a JoJo tank to help the lab manage to have clean water throughout the season when there's a water crisis in the city. And we also had Q-Rent that helped us facilitate for the lab to have 3 computers for them to capture the data of the tests that they are doing.
They donated a fridge for us, which what we'll use for is for storage of samples that we've done to test for COVID. That's the fridge which they gave us. I think the fridge which we have, it will go a long way because it has got different shells so that all the specimens which we will receive, if packaged correctly, they will all fit. I think that's the extra mile it will go in putting all the samples for COVID, which we have currently done, and accommodate the ones which will come.
I Am for Bulawayo Fighting COVID-19 there. Shout out to them for the work that they're doing in the Bulawayo area. They've donated 3 different things. A water tank to help in the fight against water, because right now water crisis is a big thing, not just in Bulawayo, but in the rest of the country too. Other places such as Harare, the nation's capital, are also having water problems. We're going to head to that shortly. But they've donated a water tank to help in the water to help combat the water challenges that they might face. They have donated fridges, which are going to be used to store samples. And of course, they've donated computers, which will help in terms of tracing and registering all things coronavirus related. Now, earlier on, not so long ago, I mentioned the water crisis. Another thing that seems to be contributing, we've heard health experts highlight water is very, very important during this time. But in Zimbabwe, a lot of places are currently facing a water challenge issue. A lot of places do not have water, which has led to citizens going out there seeking water. We received a clip of what's happening in Bulawayo, courtesy of Sight Zenzele, who is part of Sight, the founder of Sight. We received a clip whereby he highlights some of the issues that Bulawayo is facing. So let's head over to that clip so we see what kind of water challenges the city of Bulawayo is facing and what's been happening recently that has led to Abantu looking for water.
The water problem in Bulawayo is presented a lot of challenges to the residents of the city, with people trying all sorts of things to get water. We've seen people digging wells along the streams, bank rivers, sometimes in places where sewage is flowing. We've also heard that in other parts of the western suburbs, people are actually, breaking city council water pipes so that they can get water. Today, where we are here is in New Magwegwe, and there is more like a pump station or reservoir or mini reservoir of some sort with pipes underground, and we see young kids coming in to get water. It is quite risky because anytime if that pit floods, these kids can actually drown in this thing. But this also just shows how serious the water challenge is. I think it needs us as the city to work together, but also needs the vigilance of the parents to make sure that they monitor where kids get the water, because this substation or water pump, whatever it is, it's not covered. So kids go in to get the water, and I think it's actually quite risky. So we encourage parents and the city council to actually monitor that while these people are looking for water, we don't end up losing lives because of freak accidents that might happen.
All right, shout out to Zenzelendebele and the guys from site for that report there. Zulu kandabale yazibonela ngempela lokho okwenzakala yokubulawayo muri eZimbabwe muri kuzvioneraoka nemaziso enyu muchizvinzwira omega zvirikiitika kubulawayo kuvanhu vachitsvaga mvura. But now the issue of water shortages, like I mentioned earlier on, is not just restricted to Bulawayo. Let us head over to Harare to see what's happening in Harare, whereby they're also facing water challenges. A couple of days ago, Studio 7 correspondent Rutendo Mawere was in Epworth, where she got to speak to some people who were looking for amanzi. Let's head over to her to hear what they had to say about their water challenges.
Tokumbiwa kuti kuiswa zvibhorani veduwe nekuti mvura yacho ikai titori nepressure ndimukona patori nepressure kuti mamaski hatina kana kuti tidzivirire covid, saka zvinokonzesa kuti titorwara necovid itopinda patiri tungodzvanyidzirana tichitoita pressure kumvura yacho.
Saka kwamunogara inouya kangani?
Hakuna kana mvura inotouya totoifambira kutoya pano padhemu sowacho.
Saka sei muchizoungana zvakanyanya kudai?
Nekuti vanenge vasina mvura kudzimba ka vanenge vagarisa vasingawache kana kuti asei, saka toita kuti tikatoona iye akutotora mvura itotoya totowacha tese takawanda kudaro panguva imwe chete.
Muri kuzvinzwira kamuri yeZimbabwe vanhu vari kuchema kakuEpworth uko vari kuchema nenyaya yemvura. Bayakhala ngempela abantu eHarare eEpworth bayakhala besithi akula amanzi, babhekane ngodubo lokuswelakala kwamanzi. This is all happening during the time that the nation is fighting coronavirus. You heard there from some of the residents themselves are complaining about the issue of water. So just as a recap, earlier on Muri Zimbabwe, we had a conversation with Dr. Chinotenda Memeza, who was touching on the issue of COVID-19 in Zimbabwe. One more time, a recap: over 7,531 coronavirus cases in Zimbabwe, 224 deaths, and approximately 5,700 people have contracted COVID-19 in Zimbabwe. That's what's happening. You heard him touching on several different facets, and we also touched on, as you have mentioned, or as has been mentioned by several different medical experts, not just here on The Connection, but on our several different LiveTalk segments and our several different coverages, and medical experts across the world. Water is a very essential thing because you need to wash your hands. But now in places like Bulawayo, in places like Harare, the people are complaining about their access to water. Chirongo The Connection, Muyineni Mike Hove Silusizi ngempela muri Zimbabwe. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we're working from home, and this is a pre-recorded program, so you're not able to join us as per usual. Nonetheless, Tidipano, Pachirongo Cheluchevechiki, uhlelo The Connection, Lilami Mike Hove. For those that are looking to give their input, you can send us a text on WhatsApp on +1 202 465 0318. Magatira Chirongo Cheluchevechiki, uhlelo The Connection.
Zikhipanda lapho egama ngumawiza amekwaito artist aka Mr. Ngikhuluma isikhiwa ngevenecule. Guys, COVID-19 abayibiza ngecorona into ekhona. Phambili nge-social distancing, asigezeni izandla, always stay safe, stay home. Last night.
Easy machita, easy.
Shout out to my Wiza on the beat. Uyasho ngempela ukuthi easy machita, easy kulula. 2019 is the number to dial if you're looking to get more information on COVID-19. If you suspect that you may be showing COVID-19 symptoms in Zimbabwe. Once again, shout out to my Wiza. Now, let's head over to the second segment of the show, when we're talking about the fight against corruption. Earlier on, I mentioned that last week, the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, ZACC, as many know it, recently launched an app or a platform, online platform, which targets helping people report corruption in Zimbabwe anonymously. This is going to be online and it's available on their Twitter pages as you keep watching the program. For those who don't know what it looks like, I urge you once again to come to our broadcast on our 3 Facebook pages: VOA Shona, VOA Studio 7, Nipa, VOA Ndebele, soon after our radio broadcast, and you'll see what this app, what this platform looks like. They talk about it constantly on the Twitter pages. So that's what happened last week. But before we head deeper into hearing what Zimbabwean youth have to say, over the weekend, VOA reporter, once again, Rutendo Mawere, shout out to her, managed to get a hold of the ZACC chairperson, Mrs. Lois Matanda Moyo, who kind of gave us a little more insight as to what led to them creating this platform, and of course, why is it so important for them as ZACC to go online. So let's hear from her, and then we'll head over to the youth to hear what they have to say about ZACC's latest move.
Platform yekuti vane nyaya dzecorruption vanokwanisa kumhangara vachitexta paplatform iyoyo vasingazikanwi kuti yabva papi, nekuti yakagadzirwa kuti inongobva pasame place mamessage ese. Saka hazvikwanisiki chero dai wakatresa vakwanisi kuona kuti iyi message yabva kwati yabva kupi nekupi. Saka iapplication iri secure inoita kuti vamhangari vedu vange vakachengetedzwa vasingazokwanisi kuti vangateerwa vachishungurudzwa. Kutoti tuye neplatform iyoyo tanga taona vakawanda vachiuya kuzoti nyaya tinadzo, asi totya kuti tidini tikutaurire nyaya idzodzo, nekuti kuti tikutaurirei zvinokwanisa kuzotidzokera nekuti vamwe vedu vakambodzingwa, vamwe vakadai. Saka tinoona kuti vanhu vane chido zvikuru chekuti uori hupere muZimbabwe. Saka vanoda chose kuuya nemareports, asi vaingotya nekuda kwokushungurudzwa kwanga kuripo nevakuru vemabasa vanenge varivo vari kuita zvecorruption zvacho. Saka tinotarisira kuti vanhu vachatanga kumhangara zvakanyanya zvikuru.
All right, you just heard there from Mrs. Lois Matanda Moyo, ZACC chairperson, who was basically breaking down what led to them as ZACC creating this online platform. She highlights how a lot of people have highlighted that they want to report crime, they want to report corruption in the country, but they fear the repercussions of that come with them. And so ZACC decided, let's make this very simple for Zimbabweans. Let's create an online platform that allows someone to report crime anonymously to tip off ZACC, and ZACC will be able to act on that. So to hear how effective that is, I decided let me reach out to the youth. We're going to hear from the technology experts. We're going to be hearing from our civil society leaders, and we're going to be hearing from our legal experts to hear how efficient something like this will be in the fight against corruption. The first person we're going to head over to is an interview that I had with Ashton Bumira, who is the director of Youth Forum Zimbabwe. Ashton touches on the discussion of what ZACC is doing, whether or not it will help in the fight against corruption, and their concerns as the youth of Zimbabwe. Let's hear what Ashton had to say.
Yeah, I think first of all, I think I need to, appreciate the move which they have taken in terms of, establishing that type of, mobile application. But I think I need to be quick to say that, in Zimbabwe at the moment, the problem we have, it's not about, reporting corruption. I think we have a problem with the institutions, which fight corruption. Precisely ZACC, the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission. So the problem we are having here in Zimbabwe is, for example, I think ZACC, it needs to do a lot, in terms of, gaining trust of Zimbabweans. Because at the moment, I can tell you that we have cases which are actually in the courts. For example, I can give you the case of, Obadiah Moyo, the former minister. I can also talk about, Gungwaya, another case. There's also the Mfumira case. So for me, my point really is, in as much as it is important to have platforms where, citizens, they can report corruption. But I think the biggest test is with regards to, for example, if there are cases which are in the courts, what is it that the institutions which are supposed to fight corruption are doing? We also have the problem with our judiciary. A lot of people, they say, and I think they are correct, they say ZACC, it's not independent in terms of the way they discharge their duties. So I would say on one hand, it is a welcome development that we now have a mobile application where as citizens we can actually report anonymously. But I think a lot needs to be done in terms of bringing confidence, trust from the citizens. I mean, with regards to the institutions which are supposed to be fighting corruption. I think that's my take.
Now, let me ask you this, Ashton. You talked about ZACC. ZACC, as an independent body, their job is to investigate and arrest people and bring them before the court. If they're using this platform because when I was listening to some of the sentiments echoed by the chairperson, Lois Matanda Moyo, and she was saying she's excited about this development because one of the issues is that people feared reporting corruption because they feared the repercussions that at times come with reporting corruption. And so she was excited that people can now anonymously report corruption, highlighting how they feel as an organization allows them to fight corruption better. You were talking about how the whole catch and release situation, how does ZACC come into this whole play? Because they would have done their part of investigating and bringing the issue to light.
Yeah, I think on that issue, I think the problem, even reading from newspapers is, some of these cases, they end up, collapsing in our courts because of, probably lack of evidence. So I would say on that end, I think what is happening is, I don't know, maybe it will be intentional. Maybe ZACC is bringing, these cases with weak evidence, so that at the end of the day, even in the courts, the cases will not stand scrutiny, and we then end up having these big high profile cases just falling away. So in a way, I cannot authoritatively say that is what is happening, probably, but as citizens we end up feeling that probably there's a coordination between ZACC and also the judicial system here in Zimbabwe.
Tombo batanya ine rurimi rwamai vabumira. Takaona last week zvakaitwa nesangano reZACC vakaparura chirongwa icho chakanangana nokubatsira mukurwisana nenyaya yehuori munyika. Sevechidiki makambouyawo panapa pachirongwa mukabata nyaya yehuori mukati aiwa nyaya yehuori yanetsa munyika. Nemaondero enyu mungati danho riri kutorwa iri neZACC rinobatsira?
Danho riri kutorwa iri danho rakanaka chaizvo, because iko zvino sevechidiki kumativi mana enyika yese vanenge vakukwanisa kuti varipote mazita avo asingaonekwe. Saka izvi ndinoona kuti zvinobetsera pakuti hapana anenge achitya kuripota kana kumangara zvinenge zvichiitika kunzvimbo dzavanenge vachigara. Asi rega nditaure mashoko aya ndichiti iko zvino dambudziko ratinaro kuno kuZimbabwe, dambudziko hombe, nderekuti iro sangano reZACC iri rine dzimwe nyaya dziri kumatare nedzimwe nyaya dzavari kuongorora. Vechidiki vakawanda vanoona sekuti mabatiro avanenge vachiita nyaya idzi hazvisi kupa, hazvigutsi. Zvakawanda zvo tinoona sekuti vari kunyenyeredza and hapana zvavari kunyatsoita zvinobatika. So izvinezvi taane iyo application yakauya yekuti vanhu vange vachitaura pauyu, but kana iyo ZACC isingagoni kuita basa nemazvo hapana chinombobuda. Isusu kurudziro yedu ndeyekuti ZACC inofanira kunge ichiongorora, ndatiti nhau dziripo dzakatomhangarwa, nhau dziri kumatare, vanofanira kunge vachinyatsotsvaga, vachiita tsvagurudzo yekuwana umbowo hwekuti kana vachinge vaenda kumatare, avo vanenge vachinge vachipomerwa mhosva dzekuita huori vange vachibatwa ende vachizopiwa mutongo. Zvisiri zviri kuitika parizvi.
asi mungati decision yeZACC here yekuona kuti ndiani anopiwa mutongo, nekuti iwo basa ravo nderekungotsvagawo uombowo nekuongorora nyaya sezvakaitika pana Dr. Obedlula moyo, zvikaitika zvekare pana vaimbove minister Mai Priska Mfumira. Vese ava vanhu vakuru chaivo vakainvestigatewa vakatosungwa vakatoenda nyaya dzavo dzichiri kumatare izvezvi tichitaura, so vari out yatinoti nechirungu bail, asi nyaya dzavo dzichiripo. Saka chii chinoita kuti muti sevechidiki muti aiwa ZACC haisi kushanda nemazvo?
Isusu maonero edu sevechidiki ndeyekuti tinoona sekuti ZACC painoita tsvagurudzo yeumbowo ichiendesa nyaya idzi kumatare haisi kunyatsoendesa umbowo hwakazara, umbowo hwakajeka, zvinhu zvinenge zvichiitika zvainenge yapiwa. Saka isu tinoona sekuti nyaya idzi padzinenge dzichizoenda kumatare, nyaya idzi dziri kuzopedzisira dzichidonha kana dzichitadza kuenderera kumberi, because vekumatare ava vanenge vachiona pasina umbowo hunobatika. So isusu kurudziro yedu yatiinayo kuZACC ndeyekuti ZACC kana ichinge ichiita tsvagurudzo ichi, ndaitore nguva yakareba vachiita tsvagurudzo, vova neumbowo hwakazara, angava madocuments, angava maaccounts anenge achiratidza kufamba kwemari, hungava umbowo hwedzimba dzinenge dzakavakwa, hungava umbowo hwezvinhu zvakawanda. Isusu tinokurudzira kuti ZACC inofanira kunge ichizoisira nyaya idzi kumatare vachinge vane umbowo hwakazara. Zvinoita izvo kuti kana nyaya iyi ichinge yazopinda kudare, nyaya iyi inenge iri pachena. But iko zvino zvatiri kuona ndezvekuti vanhu ava vari kungomhanyiswa vachienda kumatare, vari kuenda umbowo pasina, ende nyaya dzavo dziri kuzongopedzisira kusina kwadzinoenda.
Zulu kandaba, muri eZimbabwe, you're hearing there from Ashton Bumira, osakhulayo lwenhlanganiso Youth Forum Zimbabwe. Uyasho ngempela umbono wakhe mayelana ngalolu hlelo lweZimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission. So for those that are watching our stream, liyazibonela ngempela Zulu kandaba, abafisa ukuthola ulwazi oluthile hambani kukhasi eleZACC ku Twitter, bayabhala ngempela ukuthi abafisa ukureporta indaba zenkohlakalo hambani ebulenjini lekahamba ku www.zacc.online/tip-offs. That is zacc.online/tip-offs. Alilakho ukureporta indaba lezi ezenkohlakalo anonymously. Lapha uAshton uyasho ngempela ukuthi hayi ngempela yena njengosakhulayo hayi abeZACC uyabachayela ihlombe, kodwa uthi uhulumende kamongameli Emmerson Mnangagwa mustn't just look for ways of fixing indaba le enkohlakalo, kodwa kumele bazame ngamandla bonke ukulungisisa le ndaba catch and release. Ukuthi yena ubona ngani lokho okwenzakala ngesikhathi sika Dr. Obedlula moyo, njalo owayenguminister uHonorable Priska Mfumira laye owaboshwa besetheswa icala lwenkohlakalo lokutshontsha imali lezinto ezitshiyeneyo. Uthi hayi akabona yena njengosakhulayo akathabanga ngendaba yokuthi bonke bobabili laba that we just talked about they're still out on bail. Uyasho ngempela ukuthi uhulumende kumele azame ngempela ngamandla wakhe wonke to make sure that such cases that are already still in court, they come to a conclusion. But now let's head over to another young person, an entrepreneur, umnumzana John Muchenje. Muchenje touches on his thoughts as a young entrepreneur on what ZACC has recently done. Young entrepreneurs across the whole country are all crying about the issue of corruption, because the issue of corruption is one of the reasons as to why the state of the economy is currently where it's at. Let's head over to John Muchenje to hear what he has to say about ZACC's latest move.
Danho rakatorwa neZACC idanho rinofadza munyika yeZimbabwe. Takanangana nekurwisa uori. President wedu waMnangagwa vari on record almost every time vaitaura kuti pasina uori, nokuti uori hunotora mari inofanira kuve ichishandiswa for development ichishandiswa nevanhu zvisiri pamutemo. Saka tinoti isu sevechidiki pasina uori, danho rakaitwa neZACC rekuti tichikwanisa kuvaudza uori kuri kuitika mawhatsapp numbers avo. Inova danho rakanaka rekuti chero ndiri kuchiredzi, chero ndiri kuKariba, I can report nyaya dziri kuitika dzeuori pasina kuti ndiwe ndauya kumaofisa vari kuharare. Saka tinofara chaizvo nedanho ravakatora rekurwisa wori.
Tine hurukuro dzataita nevamwewo vechidiki vanoti danho iri kairi kuti rishande hurumende uyezve sangano reZACC vanofanirwa kutanga vagadzirisa nyaya iyi ye-catch and release. Tipewo maonero enyu pamusoro pezvemashoko aya avari kutaura.
Mukatarisa zvaakuita mukuru wedu wenyika mazuva ano, vari kuti anenge abatwa ane mhosva anoenda kujeri zvichienderana nemutongo waanenge apiwa nemutemo wedu wenyika. Mukaona zvakaitika pana minista vedu vanga varipo kudhara vaObadiah Moyo, vakanengenerwa mhosva yekuti vakaita uore pakutenga kwezvinhu zvecovid, nobva vatomiswa basa ipapo semuna mai Mupfumira. Zvinoratidza kuti mukuru wedu wenyika ane kurevesa kwaakuita panyaya dzekurwisa denda recorruption riri munyika. Nyika yedu ina matambudziko akawanda arimo kurikubudza nemasanctions atakapiwa nevachena, asi isuwo semaZimbabweans tikavawo responsible, tikakwanisa kuchengetedza zvatiinazvo muno, kuti kana mari ichinge yanzi ndeyekugadzira road, ngaigadzire road zvichienderana namaquotations anenge aripo, pasina kuti vanhu vanotutsira mari dzavo pamusoro. Zvakafanira zvakaitika izvi zvekuma-mask, yekuti mask 1 inozonga yakuita $24 idzodziita kuma-5. Saka tiri kuti uori tikakufaita zvakanaka munyika yedu yeZimbabwe, tinokwanisa kukunda chero masanctions aripo, patomboti uori ngahuite ushoma, kuti anenge abatwa ngaavharigwe mukati atongerwe jeri.
Sevechidiki veZimbabwe, zvii zvatingaita mukubatsira mukurwisana nedambudziko iri ratekeshera nyika yose?
Isu vechidiki tinoti komisheni yakagadzirwa nemukuru wenyika yakanaka uye iri kufaita corruption, but tinotiwo sevechidiki todawo spesi yedu mukati mebhodhi iroro recorruption, nekuti vechidiki tisi takawanda munyika inoyi uye tisi vatungamiriri vemangwana. So chikumbiro chedu chekuti pawanikwe kota mumabhodhi ese kungava kucorruption, kuti 25% yevanhu vanenge varimo ngava vana vechidiki, so that tinodzidza kuvakuru vanenge varipo uye tinenge tinewo nyaya dzatichiona dzecorruption. Saka vamwe vedu kana vachinge vari mubhodhi iroro zvinenge zviri nyore kwatiri kuti ripote nyaya dzakadaro.
All right, that was John Mchenje, a young entrepreneur. Uyasho ngempela ukuthi hayi yena uhulumende kamongameli Emmerson Mnangagwa yena njengosakhulayo ubona ngani uyasebenza gadalala ekuqedeni kodubo lwenkohlakalo elizweni. He also touches on indaba le ukuthi hayi yena ubona ngani lokhu kusanda ukwenziwa yinhlanganiso eZACC, hayi uthi abashayela ihlombe njengosakhulayo. Uthintile njalo udaba lwe-catch and release esithi yena ulethemba lokuthi umongameli Emmerson Mnangagwa uza kulungisisa lokhu. Likubona njani izulu kandaba? Please send us ama-text ku-WhatsApp kunombolo ethi +1 202 465 0318. Lisitsho phela umbono wenu, libona ngani lokho okwenziwa yiZACC kulakho ukuqeda na udaba lwenkohlakalo elizweni? You can also write laba abazabe bebukela ku-Facebook, bhalani imibono yenu kukhasi lethu ele-VOA Ndebele. Saka ndilo zvazvitsarwa nava-John Mchenje wechidiki uyezve anova businessman muZimbabwe aiwa mazvinzura mega muri yeZimbabwe vaMchenje vachiti aiwa sangano reZACC vanorovera maoko vari kufara zvekare sevechidiki vane chivimbo chekuti hurumende yava Emmerson Mnangagwa iri kushanda nemazvo mukupedza dambudziko recorruption. But now, what do the legal experts have to say? We reached out to Paida Saurombe. He's a legal expert. He is a lawyer under Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, to hear what he has to say about ZACC's latest move and whether or not such a move can help in terms of the fight against corruption. Let's hear what Paida had to say.
Thank you so much, Mike. The digital platform being introduced by ZACC in the fight against corruption, it is a welcome move. In my view, it will aid in terms of information being brought to the attention of ZACC. What, however, I am not sure about is the effectiveness of the platform. What measures will be taken that the information remains anonymous, but at the same time, the information becomes genuine. It is one thing to introduce a platform where you are saying people should come forth with information on corruption, but that information also being genuine information which can assist the commission, information that can aid in some of the cases that have already been put in place to get a successful closure in terms of the processes that are already taking place in the courts.
Do you think that this will help in Zimbabwe's fight against corruption?
Mike, as you would not, the fight against corruption in Zimbabwe, it's not a fight that has been waiting for a platform. It's not a fight that has been incapacitated, or it's not a fight that has been unsuccessful because of the lack of resources. But it is one that needs willpower from the politicians, if I may say, to actually fight against corruption. It is a fight that requires dedication. As you would not, we already have got statutory bodies that are tasked with fighting corruption in Zimbabwe. It is a matter of willpower.
We have heard experts argue that this will not help because the actual fight against corruption in Zimbabwe should come with dealing with the catch and release issue first. What do you think about their sentiments?
It is a correct sentiment, as I've already highlighted, that what we lack in our fight against corruption is transforming that fight from being simply a mere rhetorical issue into a practical issue that we really work on fighting against corruption. It should also not be an issue of the fight against corruption being turned into a political tool to hammer on opponents. As you would notice that currently in our jurisdiction, the fight against corruption has often been abused into going after political opponents. The phrase catch and release, I think at some point in time, it needs to be dissected on what really is meant about it. I really hope that when we talk about catch and release in Zimbabwe, we are not talking about those who would have been found guilty of corruption being granted bail by the courts, but we are talking about the arrests that are made with cases that do not end up being prosecuted and they just have a natural death, or they stay in the courts for years and years, and later on you hear that those cases have been dismissed. Cases which are brought to court without the necessary investigations having been done, they are brought to court, people are placed on remand for years on end. Naturally, they are removed from remand. There are no further investigations that you hear of the cases. With the platform coming into place, without the necessary commitments that we really want to fight corruption and we want the public to assist, I think it then becomes a mere rhetoric, as I've already said.
Now, my last question to you, Paida, does the Access to Information and Protection of Privacy Act have any impact on the functionalities of ZACC's new platform?
The Access to Information and Protection of Privacy Act, obviously, it will have an impact in terms of the functionalities of ZACC's new platform. The information that will be harnessed from such a platform, which will be coming from the public, going to a constitutional body, which is the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, will obviously then be guided by certain provisions of Access to Information and Protection of Privacy Act. In that, ZACC cannot then go on to release information and, as it were, to prosecute those who would have brought in that information. And in that information actually becoming public, it will also have to follow certain procedures where you cannot just have that information released willy-nilly, but it should actually act to aid in the investigations that ZACC would be conducting.
All right, Paida Saurombe, he is a lawyer. They're touching on his thoughts as a young legal expert on what ZACC recently done. Tell us your thoughts, Muria Zimbabwe. WhatsApp +1 202 465 0318. But now, earlier on, you also heard from Mrs. Lois Matandamoyo, the ZACC chairperson, who was highlighting that this platform works based on anonymity, saying that you, as the reporter, if you choose to use this platform, you can report corruption anonymously, and this is a conversation that will happen solely between you and ZACC online. How safe can this be? I decided to reach out to a tech expert, Michael Ngube, to hear what he thinks in terms of whether or not such a platform is safe and how effective such a move would be. Let's hear what Michael had to say.
Honestly, I feel this is the best move that we have needed for quite some time, and I think going this way is the best way to help people to come out and speak out in whatever way when there's any misconduct or corruption that needs to be exposed.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's
So,
delve a little deep into it. You mentioned that you feel it's a positive way. We look at, for example, the mobile penetration in Zimbabwe. We look at how many people have access to data and so forth, and the expenses behind it. Could this be something that could negatively affect, or is there an impact? What is the impact of that in terms of people now utilizing this way towards reporting corruption?
in honest truth, here in Zim, data, we cannot neglect that fact. Data is really expensive. Of late, we've been having data increase, like within a period of 30 days, you can have something like tariffs being reviewed twice or so in a month. And it's really difficult for majority of people to afford data. But well, in town, you can find a couple of free internet hotspots where people can access the internet. It's quite a number of spots which are available for people to access internet for free.
Right, but is this only in major cities? Is this across the whole nation? Where is this?
Unfortunately, for now, I think from my understanding, it's in major cities. In remote areas, there are no facilities like that. There are no places where people can get free internet. So that's the only bummer that we have concerning this.
All right. Now, let me delve a little deeper into your tech mind on this one here. We were listening to the chairperson of ZACC announcing the mobile application, and the one thing she seemed to take pride in is the fact that people will be able to report this anonymously. No tracing whatsoever. It's just a relationship between a server of the person's mobile subscriber and ZACC.
Yeah. Okay.
How safe is something like that for the ordinary Zimbabwean who would want to utilize this platform to report corruption?
Well, from my investigation with this app, I understand it has two-way communication, authentication, should I say, which only allows only the sender and the receiver to be able to get whatever information is passed between those two channels. So there is no way that any other third party can access that information that is being shared by the whistleblower.
All right, Michael,
Yeah.
udaba lolu ngolimi lukamama. Uyingcwethi kwekusetshenziswa kwemitshina yakulenza insuku, i-technology. Ukubona njani lokho kwenziwa yinhlanganiso yeZACC ukuthi sebefisa ukusebenzisa imitshina yakulezi insuku ekulwisaneni ngodubo lwenkohlakalo elizweni?
Ya, lolu luhlupho olukhona sibili osoluhluphile isikhathi eside. Ayikhona kuphela lapha elizweni lakithi but kodwa ezindaweni eziningi ezehlukeneyo. So uhlelo lolu lulungile ngendlela yokuthi luyancedisa abantu ukuthi bakwanise ukuphumela phandle bakhulume ngezindaba ezenzakalayo eziyinkohlakalo ezenzakalayo endaweni ezitshiyeneyo ezibulalayo kumbe ilizwe kumbe ama-companies kumbe amabhizinisi amaningi akhona ngaphandle. So kuyancedisa nje izinto eziningi ezinjalo.
Siyezwa abantu abaningi bekhala ngale ndaba ye-data njengoba kuzabe kusetshenziswa ama-cellphone, imitshina yakulezi insuku. Ubona ngani abantu abaningi bazasebenzisa le ndlela na ukuripota inkohlakalo elizweni?
Khona silohlupho ngakhonapha nje ukuthi i-data yinto ehluphayo, into edulayo okwalesi sikhathi elizweni lakithi ngoba ihlala ikhwela njalo nje imihla namalanga. So kuyinto nje ehluphayo, kodwa-ke okukhona khathesi ukuthi kulezi ndawo ezitshiyeneyo edolobheni lapha ukuthi abantu bakwanisa ukuhamba bekwanisa ukuthi bengene ku-internet besende ama-messages abo besebenzise i-internet for free without paying anything, bengabhadalanga lutho.
Labo basemaphandleni-ke?
Ya, khonapha uhlupho yilo lona lolu ukuthi emaphandleni azikho izindawo ezinjalo. So yiluhlupho olukhona ngoba indawo ezinjalo zitholakala kuphela emadolobheni la kwamanye nje izindawo ezincane. not kuyo yonke indawo.
Sesikhangela ke indaba ngifisa ukuhlolisisa i-app le kancane. Sizwe u-chairperson weZACC uMamu Lois Matandamoyo esiqhenya ngempela sithi hayi i-app le wonke umuntu uzathola ithuba lokuyisebenzisa a-report inkohlakalo esingathi ngesikhiwa anonymous ukuthi it's just between wena njalo bona njengenhlanganiso yeZACC. Ubona ngani ukusetshenziswa kwemitshina yakulezi insuku ukuzasiza na kulolu dubo nxa sesikhangela lolu dubo ukuthi abantu abaningi bakhanya ngathi bayasaba ukureport inkohlakalo ngenxa yokuthi kulezinto eziningi ezenzakalayo for abantu abareport inkohlakalo elizweni?
Ya khona lolu hlelo sibili luyasiza ngakhona lokho ukuthi luyanceda kakhulu khonapha ekuthini abantu bekwanisa ukuphumela phandle bekhulume zonke mhlawumbe unkohlakalo ekhona ngaphandle lapha. So ekukhulumeni khonaphana mabephumela phandle bekhuluma inkohlakalo yonke eyenzakalayo ba protected, abantu bavikelekile ngokuba uhlelo lolu kumbe ithi platform leyi ekhona iyabavikela ngendlela yokuthi ile channel yokuthi abantu akula omunye umuntu ongangenela enkulumeni kumbe ezintweni abantu ababezikhulumile beziveza ukuthi ziyinkohlakalo. So kuyabe kuphela kuzwiwa ngumuntu oyabe ethunyelwe leyo message kuphela.
So kahle ukuthi uZulu kumele athembe ngempela ukuthi angasebenzisa le ndlela. It's just okuphumayo, it's between wena njalo abenhlanganiso yeZACC.
Hayi ke kuyinhlanganiso yeZACC kuphela lawe oyabe reporta kuphela. Abanye laba abangazama ukungena ngaphakathi abangeke bekwanise ngoba lolu hlelo luvikelekile seluyavikela abantu.
Michael Ncube, technology expert. Hayi sithanda ukubonga uMichael Ncube ngokungena kuhlelo uyasho ngempela ukuthi Zulukandaba trust this platform would be very for you to be able to, for your information to get out there, someone has to really want it. Ngenxa yokuthi the way that the system is set up, it's a conversation between you and ZACC anonymously. But now as we wrap up our conversation, Zulukandaba, I decided, you know what, let me showcase some Zimbabwean talent. For those that have been watching comedy in Zimbabwe recently, there's a young guy named Victor Mpofu who does a lot of skits whereby he pretty much imitates our President Emerson Mnangagwa. He recently did a skit on COVID-19. Victor Mpofu recently spoke to Reuters, and because of our relationship with Reuters, we're able to show you this clip. So let's head over to the conversation that Victor had, whereby he's talking about his work and highlights what exactly inspires him as a young Zimbabwean to partake in such a path. Let's head over to him.
Dzokera pamashure mbichana mimi iwe une kamera dzokera uko okay iwe unzwere iwe une shume iwe pfeka masi zvakanaka nyasoita kuti iende kukumeni moro zvichikoma zviri sefere zvasina kupfeka chiseketa iyezvi takati 6 to 6 handiti kureva kuti 6 richingovira vakomana vakutobuda vondotsvakana nayo corona imwe muri kudzimba vondotsvakana nayo corona imwe muri kudzimba unozotaura nditi pairi topaziva ndosaka tati imwe garai kumba asi mukabuda uye vakomana vanokurakashai handiti.
What we're simply saying is there are problems, right? These problems, we highlight them through our content to say, what do you think about this? Do you feel we should continue going on like this? Do you think we have a solution to this? If there is a solution, what is the solution? And the more people comment, the more people react, the more we get also the basis for the next skit, the more we get the basis for the next content that we put out. Zviri sefere ava uri kuya vasina chichi zviri sefere We as your government, we will guard against external forces, anything that try to hijack our revolution. It's even more difficult doing it, doing it because you have the fear of disappearing, you have the fear of being abducted. You don't know whether your content will touch on the right nerve or the wrong nerve, right? So you always live in fear. We don't know what we put out there. We just create the content and we put it out there. There's a government that is clueless in dealing with COVID-19 and that same economy. So it's important for us now to peg this into satire. Instead of them to drown into depression, to drown into stress, to drown into anxiety attacks, we give them humor that, sometimes it's good to laugh. The escape of laughter is critical in times like this. We have heard your cries. Zimbabweans' lives matter. Ndo pamabona. There
are some people who are afraid to make jokes about the president. So after seeing such videos, they'll be comfortable. I mean, it's part of democracy to satirize the president. So it's very important that he does what he does so that we exercise our constitutional rights in a democratic country.
We don't really have that freedom. So I feel like satire is the only way to go, because then you manage to bring out deep issues that are happening in the country and societies.
The intention is one day maybe the message will lead to something that is positive, that helps all the people as Zimbabweans.
Zimbabwe is open for business. As a listening president, the voice of God is the voice of the people. I thank you.
And Victor Mpofu of comedy, he's using comedy to educate the world, to educate Zimbabweans on what's happening in their surroundings. He talks about COVID-19, the country's management of COVID-19. He talks about democracy. He talks about a lot of things there. Shout out to Victor Mpofu for his amazing work. Zimbabwe tashika kumagumo echirongwa chedu chanasi gwanele kwalamhla sesifikile emaphethelweni wohlelo lwethu lwabasakhulayo. We have come to an end of our program today. Just as a recap, COVID figures in Zimbabwe as we speak: 7,531 COVID cases, as 224 dead, and approximately 5,700 have recovered. During Zimbabwe, coronavirus, we also touched on the ZACC's move of introducing an online whistleblower platform. Let's meet same time, same place here on The Connection. Pano panepenyuro ye Studio 7. Anokuoneka inemfaro. Dini wenyu Mike Hove. Muri Zimbabwe. Bye-bye!